Welcome to the podcast of the impossible. I'm Peter Wood, and my guest today has been featured on the Travel Channel and has worked for Amazon, Visa, Microsoft, and the Smithsonian, so you can bet he won't be bragging about being here ever. It's Kourosh Taie.
What's up, Peter?
Add it to your list of crazy accomplishments hanging out in Peter's basement. Yeah, absolutely.
Go to the top of the list.
I'm excited. Yeah. We were talking just off mic about you started into a story, and I was like, wait, we gotta share this with people.
No, tell that on the air.
So we were talking about there is a classic magic prop that's sort of more of like a surprise. Actually, if for our listener / viewer, Barry Taylor did this on one of his episodes.
Cool. So they go back and see that.
So yeah, if you've been watching these, you've seen Barry, but it's called a fire wallet, and basically it's where you open up your wallet and a bunch of flames jump out of it, right?
Right.
And I've actually never had one. And I don't know, maybe it's just where I perform or who I perform for, but
I know what you get for your birthday.
I guess, yeah. But you said you had one for years and used it for years.
I had one for like decades.
Okay.
I don't have it anymore. It got so tattered, I got rid of it, but it was fun. I would do it as like a sort of a throwaway thing,
right,
at sometimes at gigs. But I love using it for pranks.
Okay.
Right. Love, like, you're going to pay for something and you take your wallet out, either you're drive-through or you're about to pay at a cash register, and you just open it and it just flames just burst out, and it really like startles people. But I loved acting like I wasn't expecting it, and then I'd like panic and throw it, and I start like stomping on it.
That's
they're like, "Oh my God, what happened?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Like, I think like the sun hit it in this weird way and it like burst into flames." Yeah. But my favorite prank that I did with it was I was at a hibachi restaurant.
Okay.
And there's that point where they squirt the oil and it just like everything bursts into flames. Yeah. I was waiting. The guy shoots it, and all of a sudden I got this wallet ready, and as soon as like everything lights up, my wallet just bursts into flames. The chef's like he thought he caught me on fire, and everyone around the table's like freaking out.
Right.
And then like I'm like, "Oh my God!" And I stop it, and he was like, and I just looked at him and smiled. He goes, "Ah!" And
that's funny.
The funny thing is, he was like, "Where can I get that? Where can I get that?"
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, when I came back a long time later, I saw the guy.
Okay.
And he had one.
Nice.
And not only did he have one, a bunch of the other guys who worked there like added it into their hibachi show.
Sure. Yeah. That's funny. You should be working on commissions selling fire wallets. I
should.
That is really fun. Like, again, having spent time behind a magic shop counter, it is always fun when people from another profession come in and say, "Hey, my buddy showed me this thing." And again, a friend who's not a magician, but like, all sorts. I mean, sometimes it's as boring as somebody who's giving a presentation and they want to do a little, spice it up a little bit at the beginning.
Right.
But then I've also had like, exotic dancers come in and ask, there's a friend who does like a wrestling magic show. So he was always, he would come in trying to talk about like, all right, but I can't have that in my pocket because if I do a body slam, it's going to get crushed. And all these crazy like other uses for these props that I wouldn't have ever considered,
Right.
So I just love that there's a whole restaurant full of hibachi guys who all have.
I know, like I literally started a trend.
Yeah.
And there's this thing I love when if people know you're a magician and then you do a trick, the context is, oh, he's a magician doing a trick.
Right.
But one thing I love is doing something magical where the person that you're performing to has no idea that you're a magician.
Right.
And this is where, like, first thing that comes to mind is a Carbonaro effect.
I was just thinking that as well. Yep. Totally.
That when these insane things happen and the audience has no context that you're a magician and they don't think of it as a trick.
Yeah.
That is some mind-blowing stuff. I always love doing something like I'm just out and people don't know who I am, and let's say, like, as an example, I'm walking around with my shoelace untied.
Oh yeah.
Right? I'm walking around, my shoelace untied, somebody's going to point out, "Hey, by the way, your shoelace is untied." I go, "Oh, thanks." And I shake my foot.
Right.
And then the laces tie themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I walk away.
Right.
That is mind blowing.
Right. Right.
And they run after you like, what? No. Hold on. Did I just see that?
Yeah.
And when they have the context, you're a magician, they go, oh, he somehow did a trick. But
yeah.
So this is actually why I love the carbonara effect.
Sure. No, it's a great, I mean, I've heard David Riegel, one of the writers on the show, talks about it's not a magic show. It is a story about a strange day in the life of the mark, meaning the person who something magical is happening.
Right.
And I love the Carbonaro is so good at almost like a Doug Henning level of we are experiencing this joy and wonder together. Like, even though he's totally doing it, or at least obviously in on the trick, he is not, it is not about us and them. It's normally he's in a situation where he is experiencing this crazy impossible thing with the person.
Right.
Which makes it even, that's another really cool level to the show.
One thing that's also fun, and this doesn't happen very often, but every once in a blue moon, a client will be like, hey, I want to bring you in as a surprise, and I'm not going to tell anybody about you or what you do. And I like just kind of come in. It's usually like a casual strolling situation. I'll come to the party and I'll talk, and they'll be like, hey, how do you know the host? I'm like, oh, yeah, we go way back. And, you know, here's how we met. And I give some BS story. And then, and they're like, and then eventually, because conversations always lead into, what do you do? I go, well, it's kind of hard to describe what I do, but I can like show you.
Oh, okay.
They're like,
nice.
And they're like, where's this going? And then I do something for them, and they still don't have this context yet.
Right. Okay.
And if I read their mind,
yeah,
and it is just like so much stronger. And
that's cool.
I just love that surprise aspect of it. And usually I'll end up giving away, like, by the way, I'm an entertainer.
Right.
But like with the shoelace story, I'm telling you, like, I never go back and tell them.
Sure.
You know, they're just like left with that impression. Like some guy just like, he just like shook his foot.
Yeah. Yeah. What did I see?
You know?
I've had multiple clients ask me for that sort of, hey, I'm going to pretend that you're something else. I've never been able to pull it off.
Really?
Now part of that is my stupid show, because I come in there with all this
with
crap.
a deck of cards or something? Or?
No, I mean, like if it's an actual, like if I'm talking about a stand up, like a parlor or stand up show, where I have to bring gear, right?
Okay, I can see why it would be difficult. It would probably be easier to do it in a strolling situation.
I think so. And then it's just about sort of, but then like also in your experience with that, how often before word sort of gets around, like, do you feel like the gag is up early, or are you able to sort of maintain that for multiple groups?
If it's at a party where my job is to entertain the guests, the gag is eventually up, and I'll usually, just own up to it. Yeah. If it's like a one-off thing, or I'm just like out and, just blowing someone's mind, then no, like that's different. But yeah, at a gig, eventually they know, because like your job is there to entertain people. When you're like, it could be like a poker night. And you're just like one of the poker players, and next thing you know, you're like showing them all these like gambling demonstrations.
Oh yeah.
And then eventually, but then like you're doing gambling demonstrations, but then you're like reading their mind and telling them like the name of their like mother and stuff, and they're like, okay, you're not just one of the guests.
Right.
The jig is up at that point.
That's funny. Yeah, I've had a variety of requests. I think the strangest one was a client wanted me to dress up like a homeless bum and just sort of keep like wandering into the party, and like 2 or 3 times he would push me out, and then eventually I would do something magical and I was allowed to stay.
Please,
and
did you turn that down?
I did. Yeah. I mean, I did the gig. Thankfully,
you did the gig, but
I sort of politely explained why that wasn't going to work on several levels, but it comes, it comes up more often than I think people would expect. Like, I don't know what I guess it's the whole just tricking. Like, I'm going to hire a trickster, right? And then, I've got this great idea. How about, instead of just introducing them as a trickster, how about the first trick is that they actually appear to be someone else? Right. But there's all sorts of practical, like, where do I set up my show? If I talk to someone beforehand, or what am I dressed like?
Right. So you're typically in this situation doing like a parlor show.
Yeah. I mean, and there've been a couple of times where it has been strolling, and they sort of want to play up. They want me to play down the fact that I'm a hired professional and play up the fact that like, how about you're just an interesting friend of mine? And so I'll try to at least lean into that,
Right.
But
no, the homeless thing is like taking it to another level.
I don't know what that, I mean, that was, he had a vision and I said no.
I do definitely get a lot of requests from like clients to, like dress some way or like fit in with a theme and like, hey, we're having like a derby theme. Can you wear a derby outfit? And it's like,
okay,
I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that. And it's like, no, I have to buy some derby outfit for this like one-off thing.
Right.
So the way I handle this, and I our friend Brian Curry, I a lot of times reach out to him for advice, and I'm like, hey man, how do I get out of this?
Right.
And Brian goes, I just tell him just tell them that your outfit is heavily modified and tailored to assist you in doing your tricks.
Yeah.
Which is not. Like literally, I could go in like a t-shirt and do everything I do.
Yeah.
I'm not at that point. By the way, I still like dress up in a suit when I go to gigs, but I want to get to the level where I could just like David Blaine it, go in like a t-shirt and jeans,
That's a tough.
It is.
Because you also, once people, you kind of want them to know that you are a professional and you're good at what you're doing. Right. But it's a double-edged sword.
Right. Like if you're hiring David Blaine, you don't care what David's wearing. But maybe one day I'll pull off the t-shirt jeans look. I actually prefer it because there's this cliche with magic where like they think everything goes up our sleeve.
Right.
And not that sleeving isn't a technique in magic. It is.
Totally.
But in my entire career as a magician, I have literally never sleeved anything, at least not in a show, like maybe at home for fun.
Right.
But I've never sleeved anything. So it actually drives me mental when they're like, oh, well, just went up your sleeve because it's like the go-to.
Yep. Sure.
And I could literally perform in a t-shirt and I prefer that. So
yeah.
That's like part of my reason also for like not wanting to wear like a suit anymore. To like not have to listen to people be like, oh, just went up your sleeve.
Yeah.
But where was I going with this? I went off on a tangent.
We were talking about how you were dressed.
Oh yeah. So right, my outfit is not at all modified to help assist me in my performance, but like that's my excuse now. If somebody wants me to wear some custom outfit, like I would love to, but I like my outfit's heavily modified to assist me in doing my tricks, and that's my way out.
No, that's a fair. I mean,
thanks for the tip, Ryan.
yeah. No, that's a good. It reminds me of I know many performers who work with animals, and when somebody wants them to do an outdoor show, they will say no because it could hurt the rabbit, the dove. The truth is, the performer does not want to do an outdoor show because there's so many variables that could make it a terrible show.
Right. It's easier to just lie sometimes to get out of it because honestly, and sometimes what the client wants is not really a great idea.
Yeah. Well, it is an interesting, like, I feel like a white lie in that sort of situation. I know that my show is going to be much better when it is climate controlled,
right? And
when there's decent seating,
right?
And when your neighbor is not mowing their lawn 12 feet away. Anyone who's done any outdoor shows has a whole bunch of horror stories about wind and rain and neighbors and insects and all sorts of stuff. So I do feel like it is still in the client's best interest. We're not We're not doing that because
it's not
don't feel
we're lazy, but honestly, sometimes we're doing them a solid.
Yeah,
because sometimes what they want is going to actually cheapen the act, or it's just not going to be good.
Yeah.
I'm also like I finally gotten to a point where like in the past when clients would ask me for something, I'd be like, well, I just oblige because that's what they want.
Sure.
I'm finally at a point now where, like, if I think that what they want is a bad idea, I'll try and talk them out of it and tell them, like, I won't say it's a bad idea, but I was like, hey, but, based on everything you told me, I think actually this would be the better fit. Sure. A lot of times when clients contact us, they don't actually know all the options or,
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, they want a parlor show and they end up realizing that strolling is actually a better idea, but they don't know that's an option.
Well, yeah, because they're probably, it all comes to where they can conceptualize a magician standing on stage doing a magic show. And if that's what they've seen before, but they haven't seen someone doing walk around, entertainment, then it's a little bit harder for them to figure out what that would look like.
Right. It's the other thing is like a lot of times clients will be like, "Hey, I'm thinking of having an event on this day. How much do you charge?"
Oh yeah.
It's like,
well, what am I gonna do when I get there?
I need a lot more information than
that.
And it's like they a lot of times they don't know that there's like multiple options, and there's just a lot of variables that got to ask them, deep questions to figure out like, what do you need before I can give you an accurate quote?
I mean, it's back to you're not going to call up a plumber and be like, "Hey, are you available tomorrow and what do you charge?" Like, well, what's broken?
And honestly, that's a lot of times what happens.
Yeah. No, I mean, and back to what I think that most folks assume that we either have just a basic hourly rate,
right,
and or we have a price. Here's the price for me to come do my show, if that's sort of what they have in their mind. But the idea that and I love anytime I have the opportunity to do a hybrid strolling and stand up event is awesome, because
absolutely.
Being even usually the walk around magic is before the show, but sometimes it's both. Yeah. Even there've been a couple weird instances where the way the schedule worked out, they were introduced to me on stage and then I did an hour of walk around afterwards. Right. And even in those, it's great because then you've already you've built rapport. They know who you are and what you're doing, and that just gives you even more opportunities to interact with more folks.
Right. If I'm doing a parlor or stage show, I almost always prefer doing strolling beforehand.
Yeah.
Because it is such a great icebreaker. It's a great way to warm up the crowd and build up hype and anticipation. Because think about this: if you're doing a parlor show or a stage show, you go up on stage, you're a stranger.
Right. Yeah.
And there's like no expectation, or maybe not a great expectation of what's about to happen.
Yeah.
If you walk around and do some strolling and you get to get acquainted with people, like I said, great icebreaker, and people kind of get a taste of what you do, and they're like already, they're like amazed. By the time you walk up on stage, I've noticed the energy in the room so much higher. Mm-hmm. They're super excited. They're like clapping. They can't wait to see what else you have to offer. Yeah. So I almost always like try to convince clients to do strolling beforehand.
Yeah.
Because it really helps the energy with the show. And I'll usually like throw in the strolling for like next to nothing.
I mean, if you're already there, if you've already driven there and you already have the spot on your calendar, you've booked me for the evening, basically. So. Right. It's, I mean, you don't want to do it for nothing, but at the same time, there are.
But you want to incentivize it because it's going to just only help.
Yep. It's gonna be much better. The audience will and it's amazing to me even where like I'll do some events where there's 1,000 people and I do 30 to an hour of strolling beforehand. I didn't get to all 1,000 people, right? But those 1,000 people are sprinkled all around the ballroom.
Right.
So when I get up on stage and start my thing, it is amazing how I might have only hit up 10% of those folks, but the energy is still there.
Definitely.
Like it still is better than just sort of hitting a room cold.
A lot of times I'm like, by the way, how many of you got to see me walking around doing some entertainment earlier? And they'll be like, that already, like, the energy level is at a higher point than it would be if you were just walk up in front of everybody as a stranger.
Yep. Yeah. No, I think that's and it's sort of like when you go to see a celebrity and they walk out on stage, you have a certain excitement because like, hey, it's so and so, and I know them, and usually that's like why I bought the ticket to be here, you know. But it sort of can make you an instant low key celebrity where like folks have had enough engagement with you that by the time you go out on stage, they are excited to see more. Hopefully,
good point. You're kind of building like a sort of celebrity status and rapport.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And I would always rather that. One of the toughest. I mean, I started this episode by making fun of all the awesome things that you've done, and now you're here. But it is.
This is my greatest achievement.
I'm glad. Yeah. That's
I was wondering when you were going to ask me.
I did a show recently where the venue doesn't matter, but the point is it was not the most spectacular, and they said like, so did Penn and Teller give you did that open a bunch of other doors? And I was like, well, I'm here, aren't I? And like,
great answer.
They took it in the appropriate tone, which was like, On the one hand, obviously this is not exactly a stage in Las Vegas, but on the other hand, I'm here doing what I love to do. So sure,
That's a lovely answer.
Yeah, I think, but I would kind of rather, people know less about me going into a show. Sometimes it worries me where the CEO gets up there and introduces me in such an over the top, grandiose, here's the stuff he's done kind of way, right, that like, I'm really scared. I guess maybe because I have seen. You
think they're setting the bar too high or something?
Yeah, like, I'm worried. And I also like anytime. I mean, I just always think back when I'm in the audience and especially at a magic show, but a lot of times I'm always thinking about, don't tell me, show me. Like, do not tell me how awesome you are. Do not tell me all the amazing things you can do. Show me. Like that's why I'm here, Right. And that's my issue with like an intro video, right? That like hypes people up before a show.
Sizzle reel.
It works fine for some performers. For me, I would much rather just come out there and start doing my thing and sort of win that audience on my own terms, as opposed to somebody saying like they've been here, and now they're here tonight. And then it's like, oh, like I hope, let me,
I get that. I get that.
Maybe that's my own.
You want to win them over like with some effort, not because, you played some killer intro or somebody gave you some killer, introduction. And now you have to like live up to those expectations. That's pressure.
Well, and also like, apparently, I've only performed in Las Vegas twice, both of which were on TV. I've never performed professionally in Las Vegas.
You should just say, you should brand yourself as a Vegas performer.
Yeah, had multiple headline. But from what I hear from people who work Vegas, one of the nice things about it is that most people bought their ticket that day, and one of the people in that party decided to go see you. But not everybody. It rarely is a unanimous decision. It's usually, the husband thinks it'd be cool to go see, Penn and Teller. I forget which one is which, but we're going to go see them. And the wife barely knows who these people are. Right.
Right.
And so then when you show up to that show, Vegas audiences are harder to win over, but then that makes it more appealing when you can, as opposed to, I bought a ticket for Penn and Teller 4 months ago. They're coming to my local town. I'm so excited. Like, the show is, of course the show is going to be great because you sort of hyped it up so much. Whereas if you go into it as I barely know who these guys are or what they do, whatever that performer is, I feel like then it's much more of a thrill, from what I understand, to sort of win the audience over on those terms,
Yep. I can totally see that.
Yeah. So I think that's why we should continue to just be anonymous. Like, we're not going to say this is Kourosh Taie. We're just going to say it's Mr. Magic Man. And that is a segue, because your website is itsmrmagicman.com. And also on social media. So that's, ITS, ITS and then MR and then Magic Man on the social stuff. This has been delightful. Thank you so much
Always a pleasure.
for hanging out here. Yeah, no, it was lots of fun. And so be sure to check out Kourosh Taie online. And that is going to do it for this episode of the Podcast of the Impossible. For my public shows and my social media, and of course the big Museum of the Impossible project, head on over to oftheimpossible.com. I'm Peter Wood. Thanks.